Welcome to the CFB Dynasty Podcast with hosts Matt Knowles, Brian McElfresh, and Doug Gravely.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there? This is the CFBDynasty.com podcast. My name is Matt Knowles, as always, alongside the founder and the creator of CFB Dynasty, Mr. Brian McElfresh. Brian, we have got a great show today. Today, we're going to be talking about all things, not just college football, because we love college football, but for those of you that are just happening upon the site, we're going to be talking about college fantasy. We're going to be talking about a massive rankings update that's been done for this upcoming season. It's going to be a great show. B-Mac, tell us why you're excited about this show coming up.
Well, here we are recording on a Saturday, 9 Saturdays away from week 1, 62 days and 8 hours away from week 0, where we get to watch Florida State at Georgia Tech, SMU at Nevada later on at night. And that's going to be a fun Saturday there, August 24th. So it's really becoming real for me. The intensity is setting in for college football. I'm so excited. I've put a load of hours in every day to go through all the updates we'll talk about today. But yes, it just feels close now. We're doing our little beach vacation next week, and I've obviously looked at my Phil Steele magazine, but I'm saving the opening of the actual magazine part. I've just looked at the digital version, I'll say, but super stoked. It feels close now.
All right, so for those of you out there listening, I'm going to throw a number out there at you. The number is 2,143. And I want you to think about, what is the significance of that number? It could mean a lot of things. It could be the last time since University of Florida had a winning season, that many days. I don't know. It can be a bunch of things. But BMAC, why don't you let everybody know the significance as far as this show is concerned to the number 2,143?
Yes. And for those of you on YouTube, I will go ahead and share my screen. One of our ugliest pages on the website is our depth charts page for every team. So this was combed through every single position on every team. And so there's been so many updates here, which this is like a basis, a little foundational piece of our rankings. So as players move around, they transfer, they move up in the depth chart, whatever, we make those adjustments here, which automatically adjust our rankings. And those rankings are based on a projection based on 3 years. Right now, they're based on the last 3 years of a position's outcome. So wide receiver 1 for Boise State's coach, wherever they've coached the last 3 years, has done X number of average receptions, yards, touchdowns, and then they're adjusted based on that, based on news that comes out, based on injuries, etc. Like I was reading a little bit about Oronde Gadsden this morning. Still not cleared, not sure if he's going to be cleared for fall. So we made some adjustments to kind of bump him down a little bit. But anyways, yeah, that's the number of players here.
Yep,
and
2,140
rankings now.
2,143 is the number of players that have been ranked for the upcoming season. So how does that break down? That means on average for the 134 teams in FBS, that's an average of 16 different players per team that currently have their rankings on the site. Might that number go up throughout the season? You never know. Probably there's going to be some walk-ons and some people that aren't even on people's radars right now that might jump into significance as the season goes on. So that number is probably only going to have a chance to go up. But that is intense. Think about the number. If you're coming from a pro football perspective and you're thinking about the number of players that you have to pay attention to in pro, 32 teams, the number of skill position players, think about 32 times that number. It comes nowhere near 2,143. So that is an impressive number that has been ranked and looked at on this site.
Yeah, we've got 399 quarterbacks ranked, and a few of them projected to go negative, just based on the last few years of data here. So, obviously, for a lot of people that play the full player pool, uh, you're not going to go this deep. But there's a lot of people too who have a player pool specific to like whatever Big Ten plus Notre Dame is one that I've heard from multiple different leagues in the past. So our rankings are set up where you can like filter down by team, filter down by conference once you've downloaded them, so that the rankings can just be adjusted to exactly what your player pool is.
So we're going to get a little deeper into the rankings here in just a little bit. But before we go there, we're going to wheel this back all the way to the beginning. For those of you that don't know the history, don't know why this exists, BMAC, let people know why the CFB Dynasty podcast, why the website, why the league in and of itself. Why does this even exist?
Yeah, so all of us in our like core group of our home league, what we call our home league, was NFL fans. Okay, since we were little, whatever, college football fans. Half of us were primarily college football fans, me specifically for sure. And so about 17 years ago or so, we decided, hey,
nearly 2 decades.
we decided, let's try college fantasy, let's shake it up. And then we had a college to pro aspect where our college fantasy players graduated to our NFL teams, and it was a blast. But it was a lot more difficult, obviously, on the college fantasy side. I'm in the South, in Florida specifically, and while I might know the SEC really well, I didn't really know whatever a middle tier like Pac-12 back in the day Washington was doing, or Washington State or whatever. Although I would watch their games from time to time, not enough to really know them in and out. So we realized quickly, like, hey, a lot of these, whatever, Tulsa was a big passing offense back then. Like, okay, these guys are great for college fantasy. So over time, we built out CFB Dynasty to help other people who want to play college fantasy football, who love the college game, whether or not they graduate to their pro team. College fantasy and CFB Dynasty exists to help those people. So we've got our Devy rankings if you play a Devy league or a campus to Canton style league, which is what our home league is. We've got standard college fantasy redraft type leagues, and then shortly we'll have rankings for keeper / dynasty college only leagues where.
And one of the reasons why that's been shared before, one of the reasons why too that this site exists was, if you're playing pro football fantasy, you can go to every site known to man and get rankings. You can, and basically you're going to get pretty much the same general rankings from one site to the next. If you were to go out there today and you were to go look for pro football, you're probably going to have the same 4 or 5 guys in the top 5s across every position. Their positions might be maneuvered just a little bit, but there's no shortage of that information. When CFB Dynasty started, to get college fantasy information was almost non-existent. It was very difficult to get the depth of information needed and also understand the significance of, say, a group of 5 school. Why would I draft somebody from Middle Tennessee State instead of from Alabama? And that was part of the big motivation as well.
Yeah, and there are some great guys that have been in this for a long, long time too. So like Mike Bainbridge, for example, he's great. He's been at it for a long time too. And there are other sources of college fantasy information, but yeah, it is hard. It was a lot harder to find back then than it is now. And still, it's like a growing like community of people who just love college football, love college fantasy. And it's really just an addition to your Saturday. Like, it just makes it that much more fun when you're watching your team or looking forward to your team's game late at night. And then you've got fantasy points accruing if you're playing, whether you're playing DraftKings or just standard college fantasy football league with your buddies.
So we'll ask the basic question. If you're somebody that has never played college fantasy football, BMAC, we're both going to take a chance to answer this, but why is college fantasy football so great to you?
It's just in addition to your Saturday where it's just that much more fun while you're able to compete and play with your buddies. You know, you get those scoring updates, something you can follow all year long. The waiver wire is way different, obviously, than an NFL, especially a deeper NFL league where there's tons of options depending on your player pool. But that's another thing. Just player pool can be completely customized via fan tracks, and it's overall just another way to compete with college football. Just enhances your game day.
Yeah, my brother used to say more games equals more fun, and finding a way to take the, in the NFL you have 16 games a week at most that are going to have significance in your life, and if you've got a league that plays all applicable college teams, right now there's 134 teams, you could be the guy that's like, I've got to go find Kennesaw State on ESPN3 because that could be the difference between me beating BMAC or not, is because I've got the breakout Kennesaw State wide receiver playing, which before fantasy football, I guarantee if you're somebody that's a fan of a Power 5 school, you probably are not going to give, two plug nickels about a team like that. But now you've got significance, and it almost evens the playing field in a sense. So it makes it fun. I mean, I end up always drafting guys from West Coast teams. It's one of the running jokes that, you're always going to see Boise State and Fresno State and Hawaii and people like that. And I'm the guy that would be messaging somebody because I stayed up till 3:00 in the morning to see if my Hawaii wide receiver, got me the win. And if you're my opponent and that guy got the win, you're getting a text from me at 3 a.m.
That's a reminder to me. Like, I really need to start conditioning for college football season soon, because I normally, like, I'll go to bed, whatever, 10:30. That's not going to cut it coming up pretty soon here.
No. Well, the thing for me too that's always rough is that I'm a soccer official, and so there's a lot of times I've got a game that's 40 minutes away that starts at 8:00 in the morning on a Sunday, and when you've got a Hawaii game going on that lasts till 3:00 in the morning, that's no bueno, man. That's rough. But conditioning is key. Conditioning is key, even for guys in fantasy football. So we've talked about really quick why we like college fantasy. Why do you like college to pro, campus to Canton, Devi? What is appealing to you about that? And why would you hope to convince somebody to play in the league like that?
It really, it takes me back to like the college football video game, or even like Madden dynasty modes or whatever. You're building a franchise, you're doing those drafts, and it's more of a team building, like a general manager type of feel, because a lot of times you're drafting people straight out of high school. So your analysis of, all right, what's their playing time going to be based on like where they're at on the depth chart, obviously, how many stars they have by their name, what do you think of their highlight reel, everything you can read about that player, you read in terms of how they're doing, like in camps, and if they're a freshman already, you're looking at what are they doing in practice reports and all that stuff. So it just makes you feel a little bit more like a GM. You're drafting players way earlier, and there's a lot of assets to move. If there's one complaint about our home league, it's just like half of the guys aren't as interested during the full off season of college football. So they're not really looking at trades and stuff. And that's one of the beauties of a dynasty, like our style of league, where you have so many assets to make trades. So you can build up your college team while you're building up your pro team, and you've got draft picks and free agent pickups and all that stuff that you can negotiate with. How about you?
Well, to me, one of the things I really like about the college to pro, the campus to Canton style league, is that it really changes up the focus of the draft. When you're in a pro football dynasty, let's say you're in a 12-team snake draft, you pretty much know when you set your board up, if you got your top 12 guys, unless somebody does something insane, like they're going to draft a defense in the first round, or they go for a big time rookie reach, you're probably only going to get one of your top 12 because everybody's got pretty much the same board.
True. Yes.
When you go into these college drafts for a college to pro style league for campus to Canton, there's been so many times that you'll go in, you're like, hey, here's my top 10 guys. If I get one of these guys, then I'm going to be happy. And then you're like, it's the fourth round, and you're like, I've already got three of my guys, and one of my guys is still out there because everybody's board is set up so differently. Some people want to be drafting the incoming number 4 running back at Alabama because they think he's going to be the starter in a couple years. Some people are like, hey, my team is really old. I need to draft, younger guys. Some people the opposite. They're like, my team is really young. I need to draft some seniors that are going to be going into the pros. So it's really neat seeing how these 12 people in there, all with the same mentality that you have, which is to win the dang thing, all construct their boards so differently. And then you're like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I need to listen to Drunk Doug a little bit more because Drunk Doug gave me some great guys last year at the draft. You know what I'm saying? That weren't even on my board that are guys that I'm really happy about having now. He just constructed his board a totally different way. And it's neat seeing the different strategies. That's why I really love that. And then also, people are probably sick of me saying I've had Patrick Mahomes on my team since he was a freshman going to be on a sophomore, that when if you weren't around then, he was in a quarterback battle. It was going to be, who's the guy going to be? And BMAC, was it you that drafted the other guy that you're like, I've noticed it was either you or Mike Davis. Somebody drafted the other guy. I drafted Mahomes. Somebody else drafted the other guy. We both were like, who's going to be the guy that's going to get named the starting quarterback for Texas Tech?
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes is named the starting quarterback and the rest is history. But you get to see guys like that you're like, man, before this guy was anything, I went and took a chance on him as the GM, so to speak. And now he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Maybe I helped him out.
That is so much fun. And on the college side too. So if in this type of league, obviously your NFL players you can have for whatever, 10, 12, 14 years, depending on what position they play. Obviously running backs would be less, but in the college side, like you kind of know 6-7 weeks, are you a competitive team or not? And it's more of at that point, like, okay, you're planning to win in windows because you might have some injury problems. You might have some whatever transfer issues or playing time issues or whatever in the college fantasy side. So you're playing for a window to win a title. And it does, like 6-7 weeks into the season, you can probably decide, all right, do I want to maybe plan for next year, sell off some of my assets, that kind of stuff. There's just so many opportunities for movement and acquisition in this kind of league.
All right, so if somebody's like, man, you know what, you guys have sold me, I want to play college fantasy football. BMAC, where is it right now? Where's the main site? Basically the only site. Doesn't mean it's going to be the only one because there's some upstarts that want to get into the game, but where should you be going to try and play college fantasy football?
Oh, Fantrax. Like Fantrax is great. I don't know why there's a lot of people that are just clamoring for other people to join in the game. Obviously, if a sleeper or somebody like that jumps in, that expands the knowledge of people that are playing on NFL on sleeper, and then they see, oh, what is college fantasy? I didn't know that was a thing. Well, yeah, it's a thing. But on Fantrax, like, I don't know about you, Matt. I have no complaints. I enjoy Fantrax a lot. There's just so many customizations, and this, I think, is the main reason that a lot of people don't play fantasy, at least from what I've heard. Like, let me blow this up a little bit. For those of you on the screen, I'm showing the player pool options where you can check or uncheck any conference that you want or don't want in your league or your player pool. And then you also have check boxes by individual teams that you can take them off. So, yeah, if you wanted to get down to whatever, SEC, Big Ten only, you can absolutely do that. It really is just, what does your group of buddies want to do? Who are their teams? And then it gets really competitive. And that's why our rankings are so deep, because there are so many leagues like that where it's like, all right, they need to take a running back 2 from an SEC school because their player pool is so slim in a 12-team league that's focused on just a couple conferences. So that's one of the reasons we go so deep in the rankings. We have, 6 wide receivers for every team ranked, projected based on the last 3 years of data for their coach per position.
And one of the good things about Fantrax to me is that, let's be real, Fantrax, there's times when they've got some areas of improvement. There are some things that have been frustrating that have happened in the past that needed to get corrected. One of the good things about Fantrax is their customer support. Whether you're a commissioner or you're just somebody that's involved in the league, you could go and write their support, and their support normally gets back really quick, and a real human being is actually there helping to resolve the issue, which is good. That doesn't always mean they're going to resolve the issue the way you want it to be done, because they might have a different opinion of what means resolved. But the fact of the matter is, if an issue comes up, there's actual real human beings there that want to fix the thing. And I think that that's a big draw right now to what Fantrax is.
Yep. And you can easily carry your roster over from year to year, all the things that you would want. If you have a question, let us know. We love Fantrax. And yeah, I think you guys should join in. Obviously, if you're not playing, give it a go. There's free versions of this to run too. So if you're not interested, like we have a premium league, if you're not interested in that, just give it a trial. Do a mock draft, whatever. That's all available on Fantrax.
All right. So let's say you're like, hey man, not only have you guys sold me on this thing, I want to play college fantasy football. I see where I should be playing it on Fantrax. I see that you guys have the site CFB Dynasty. Is everything that's there free? Or is there a difference between what is free content and paid content? BMAC, tell them the difference between free and paid on cfbdynasty.com.
Yeah, sure. So we have a free version of rankings where it's really just a teaser. So you can kind of see what you're getting into before you pay. We have $6 a month or $30 for the year. And you'll get these live rankings updates. So these are going to be changing all the time. You know, as soon as fall camp opens up, we're going to start getting injuries. We're going to start getting reports and moving projections around based on that information. So we have the teaser rankings here. And then of course you can log in to view the full rankings. Once you're logged in, you can just go to Draft Prep, Draft Central. And this is where all of the premium links are. And there are other ways to get to it. But yes, you see the countdown there to kick off. And then you have standard CFF. You've got Devi rankings there. And then, yeah, again, shortly, Keeper and Dynasty rankings will be available. But yeah, you can click through and you can see, all right, here we've got our quarterbacks. So paid members can see this. You can print, download, whatever you want to do. There's a search feature here. So if you're searching for a certain player, a certain team, whatever, there's a search box on each of those. And then these are live rankings. So they'll be getting updates all the time. Loads and loads of changes happened just this past week, as we mentioned earlier. But the primary focus of these rankings will be, you've got obviously your player, your team, your points projections, but then conference. So you can narrow down, your player pool or our rankings based on whatever your player pool is in Fantrax. We've got the bye weeks listed. We talked about that a little bit last week. There are multiple bye weeks for every team this year because of how the schedule worked out. And then we've got another key portion in there is the fantasy playoff schedule. So this year it's week 12, 13, and 14. Of course, your league could be different, but in most leagues, it'll end on the rivalry weekend there. So you see Byron Brown, you've got him at Charlotte against Tulsa week 13 at Rice. Super favorable for him. And then Dylan Gabriel at Wisconsin, tough place to play, bye week, and that at home against Washington in the college fantasy championship game. Tough fantasy playoff schedule. So there's a lot of key information here. We think it's everything you need to be able to make an educated choice. Our job is to lay it out here, and then you guys can kind of play it out in your drafts based on what you're looking for, based on your league type, all that kind of stuff.
And if you look at the screen that BMAC had up before, where you've got your standard leagues, your dynasty leagues, and then your Debbie leagues, those rankings are all going to be slightly different because in a standard league, which is what BMAC was just showing, you might have a guy like Byron Brown that's going to be up there near the top. But in a Devi league or in a dynasty league, maybe that's a guy that's going to the guy that's going to the pros. He might not be up there because that might not be the pro level talent. So that's why having access to those three different sets of rankings, so you can see the slight adjustments here and there, is going to be key, because you don't really want to be drafting for, Campus to Canton off of a single or redraft league dynasty list.
Right. And so, yeah, picking that is picking the correct league type obviously is a major key. But this is how you can start building your dynasty here, and beating out all your buddies. So we'll continue to keep this up to date. We'll be on the news, and then of course, like the Discord, as you guys see news come in, that's a way you can kind of ping us as well anytime at me on the Discord, and this thing will be getting rolling going into the season. So excited about that.
Yeah, every year that Discord just keeps growing. Last year there were some great interactions, some great questions. We'll talk a little bit more as we get to the end of the show about how that Discord actually sometimes can help to influence the show. And you can be a part of that, which is super cool. That you can be a part of that Discord, helping to influence what happens on the show. You're also going to get weekly updates and articles that, just like BMAC just showed, where you only have an access to a certain number of sample rankings throughout the week. If you want to be able to see, who are my potential starters going to be in week 4? Well, if you don't have access to that as a paid member, you're only going to get a small sample or nothing. You're not going to be getting, if you've got 12 guys in your league, seeing the top 10 guys isn't really going to help you, because that's one position and it doesn't even cover every team. You need to be able to see your number 35, number 40 guy might be your running back that's going to change the game for you.
Yeah, those in-season weekly shows for all of our weekly rankings, we have some fun on those. So I look forward to that, obviously, when actual football is being played.
Yeah, those are fun because we get to definitely question why certain guys are at the top of the rankings, why they're not. It's always crazy seeing which team is going to be the team that you wouldn't expect that's going to always be throwing guys at the top. Could it be Kent State? Could it be, Texas San Antonio? Who knows? But there's always going to be some school that you don't expect coming into the year that ends up being like the team that you talk about every single week.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about the sell on what college fantasy football is. So let's go back to the topic of this show. We talked about the 2024 rankings drop, the official start of the season rankings drop, 2,143 players across 134 teams. The reason why this is the start is because right about now is when people are going to start thinking about the initial thoughts of what they're going to put on their draft board. So the season doesn't start in week 0, week 1 as a college fantasy football player. The season starts now. BMAC, let's talk about how these rankings are derived. What is your process, without giving away the secret sauce? What is the way that the rankings are derived at CFB Dynasty?
Yeah. So the basis of everything's the depth chart. So we've got to nail that. But then if you take away the names of players, so if you consider
Wisconsin running back.
Well, I'm thinking a little bit different. So if you think of like a Lane Kiffin QB1.
Okay.
So no matter what school he's been at in the last 3 years, we're looking at averages of of QB1 and how that output is. And that stuff is really good. So in terms of like our database, it's currently 3 years deep. It's possible we'll go 4 or so years deep next year, but because the game is changing so much, I don't want to go so deep for these coaches that have been around a long time. But so yeah, that's a part of that where you've got the basis of, all right, here's what QB1 for Lane Kiffin averages for yards, touchdowns, interceptions, rushing yards, propensity to run, rushing touchdowns, all that stuff. Lots of metrics in there. But then there's a percentage adjustment that we can make on the human element side, where we're looking at things. We're looking at, them getting an extra receiver. What in the world is his name? Juice Wells, coming over from South Carolina. Super talented, really, Jackson Dart's got a ton of experience now with this wide receiver core. So we'll tweak that a little bit by small percentages. And that's really how we end at the projection for fantasy points. And of course, like if there's an injury, like Brew McCoy right now, if he was fully healthy, he would be wide receiver 1 or 2 there for Tennessee. But because he's had that Liz Frank injury to his foot and he's not really sure when he's going to be able to participate, his projection has been tweaked down a bit. So there's a lot of the human side of things based on news and information that we get, but the basis of it is depth chart plus 3 years of data kind of baked into it.
Yeah, and obviously, the player's previous performance is going to be brought in there as well, because just because a coach has a certain style, the player might buck that trend. So there's a lot of different things that go in there. In the preseason rankings, what we're talking about right now, what's the difference between the amount of human input that's put in there compared to, say, the weekly rankings and the projections of breakouts during the weekly different rankings like that?
There's a lot less human element during the season. Once we get into week 4, week 5, once you've had multiple data points against equal-ish competition, the first couple weeks are typically still super like me and maybe you and Doug kind of putting our heads together and ranking them a little more heavily biased towards our preseason projections. And then as there's more data points, obviously we can have a full swing on how we feel a player is going to perform based on how they actually perform.
And obviously, part of the reason why BMAC's saying this, 4 to 5 week thing is because in your first few weeks, that's when you're going to have all your money games, you're going to have your beatdown games, and it's tough to really get a gauge on somebody's true ability to perform over the course of a season, because you might have the guy that's playing against Alcorn State FCS in week 1 and just getting a crushing beatdown, and he puts up tons of stats, or the converse. The team might put up a ton of stats and they might pull all their starters after the first or second quarter. So your wide receiver 1 may not have even gotten a target in that game because the running back got 4 50-yard touchdowns, So that's why you got to get into some games where you're talking about equal competition, letting those averages kind of even out. So you can say, okay, well, this is a true understanding of what a Malachi Corley at Western Kentucky is going to do, or what the wide receiver 1 at Alabama or running back 1 at Alabama is going to do outside of these money games or kickoff classic games. You might have a team that, starts off Florida State versus Georgia Tech with a high quality game in week 1 that might make those Florida State guys, their stats come down in comparison to everybody that's playing in the beatdown games.
Consistency matters a ton as you get over the season. It's just so important to a winning college fantasy team where all right, this guy, he's going to get 12 to 14 targets every game kind of thing. So consistency matters a lot to us. Well, we should have a consistency metric that will maybe launch as a new tool over the course of the season. So working with the developer on that one. So that'll be potentially pretty great for everyone. But
one of the great additions you had last year,
on
the weekly rankings was putting in the last 3 weeks of statistics for everybody that's on there. So, you might have a guy that statistically looks like he might be lesser than, say, the guy right below him, but that guy may have not even played for the first 3 weeks. And then he, did great in weeks 4, 5, and 6. And so that's why he's up in the charts. His overall season average might be low because he didn't do much in the first 3 games, but you can see, like, what have you done for me lately? What is this guy doing right now in the season? Is he on a hot streak? Or is he somebody that, started off great, blew up stats at the beginning of the season, is now tailing off? So I thought that was a very needed improvement to be able to help people to take their game to the next level.
Yeah, no doubt. It also helped me, honestly, like, identify injuries because there's no regulated college football injury report. So I saw a guy 0 out for a week. I knew there's research that needed to be done there.
All right. So we've talked about the kind of the formula and the process. So BMAC, let's go in really quick and just look at, do you want to look at the sample first versus the full so people can see, the actual names that are in your list?
So the names are going to match. They're actually like dynamically tied to our database of rankings. So the top 10 will match. If you go onto the rankings page, you'll see some teaser rankings. Yeah, again, just so you can see what you can get into. And then over here on the screen now, I've got where you see the full. You got the fantasy projection. You've got the playoffs there. And I'm still on the fence. I don't know if it's helpful or just useless to see the actual like touchdowns projected, yards projected.
No,
All of that stuff.
I think it's absolutely something that's worthwhile for people. They want to be able to see, is my guy going to be a heavy passing guy? Is he going to be somebody that's going to be a combo, dual threat passing and running? I think that's great. And what I meant by the difference between the teaser rankings and this is the teaser rankings doesn't have all the information. So you might have in the teaser, you might not get a specific note for the week. In the teasers, you're not going to have the playoff projection or the playoff schedule. So in the teaser, you're going to have the same guys ranked the same way, but you're going to have more information to base your decisions on when you get into the full rankings.
Yeah, exactly.
So BMAC, let's so what do you want to cover in here? You've re-ranked everything from quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, kickers, defenses. Where do you want to start? What do you want to show off? What are you most proud of in these rankings that you want people to see during this show today?
Well, I mean, maybe it's like you said, putting out the actual touchdowns, yards, etc., because that would not be difficult whatsoever. It would just add a lot of data in there. So if that's what everyone's interested in, hey, let me know. Can make that happen pretty quickly. But yeah, overall, in terms of what most proud of, I guess it's really the depth. So you're not going to see a ton of changes across the tops of the list because we've continued to go through those, and those are pretty solid. We still have some adjustments that are going to happen, of course, at the top. But for the most part, now it's every single team. Again, like at wide receiver, let's see, we're looking at, I've got to add the actual number there, 798 different receivers, and they're all in there and projected based on those 3 years of data. So as you go through there, of course, you can search, you can look through the website, you can scroll through the rankings, or you can search, or you can download them yourself and search them in any kind of spreadsheet tool that you want to use. But yeah, I feel really good about it, where everything's at, and we'll start promoting it this weekend.
One of the things I think is really good about the paid content here when you got the playoffs is if you just have a list of the names, say, here's your top 10 quarterbacks, and you're looking down at, and you're like, hey, these guys look great. I can't wait to go get X quarterback on my team. But then you go into those advanced rankings and you look at a guy like Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, and you're like, hold on for a second here. Jackson Dart has got a bye at Florida, and then has a home against Mississippi State in the college playoffs. Mm-hmm. That might not be a guy that if you have him and somebody else right there together, that could be the difference in whether you're going to draft him in a redraft league. A guy like Haynes King. Haynes King is another great example. Haynes King has 3 bye weeks this year, but then in the college playoffs, he's got a bye, number 18 NC State, and then at number 1 Georgia. That's probably not going to be the guy that's going to carry you to a college fantasy football championship. He might carry you through the regular season, but he may die out right there in the playoffs. So that's why having that advanced information and the advanced metrics that CFB Dynasty puts in can really help you to make sure that you avoid some of those pitfalls when it comes to your draft.
Yeah, some of the specific ones, just looking at these wide receivers here, like that have been adjusted. Again, if you've downloaded these should be re-downloaded as of Saturday afternoon, June 22nd, as we're recording this. So loads of updates, including disappointingly, like Trayon Sibley was low in the rankings, wide receiver 1 projected for Liberty. because there was an issue with his projection. So that was adjusted along with hundreds of other adjustments to get him where he is now. And he's there at wide receiver 16 based on his projections. And he's going to be someone that you can start and lean on likely in the college football or college fantasy football playoffs.
Yeah, there's some good numbers in there. There's some good numbers in here. I can tell you right now, just even looking at the wide receivers, Pefeli Ashlock from Hawaii. It's another name that people should think about when you're talking about stuff in season. He's at number 8. Hey, that's great. Pefeli Ashlock's at number 8. But look at his playoff schedule. He's playing at Utah State. He's got a bye, and then he's home against New Mexico. So he's definitely not somebody you'd be playing in week 13, and Hawaii historically does not do good going to cold weather games late in the season. And so he's probably somebody you're not going to want to be playing in week 12 against Utah. That just shows how important that information is. So a guy that's at number 8 might be number 8 overall, but he probably is not a guy you're going to want to count on in those college playoffs.
Absolutely. There's plenty of those. We went over all of the top playoffs, or most favorable and least favorable, essentially, fantasy playoff teams. Was it last week? Last week we did that?
I think it was last week. I think last week, last week's show, if you go back in, it was the top eight best and top 8 worst situations for the college playoffs. So definitely, if you didn't watch that show, you want to go back and take a look.
Yeah, that'll be a good one for any sort of draft prep. But yeah, it's all here and available and ready to go. So as we get closer and closer to draft season, which ours I still need to set. Uncle Joe, shout out. I need to set. He's good with a Wednesday night draft. So
I'm pretty sure I went in and set that thing for us.
You already did.
Double check. I think I did, man. I mean, we gotta make sure we look out for each other. I'm pretty sure I got that thing set for us.
Nice. So yeah, kickers are new, completely new. We didn't have these before. Those are there. Defense and special teams are listed out there as well, of course, with the fantasy playoffs and bye weeks and all that stuff. But yeah, I super excited to start getting some fall news here pretty soon.
Oh yeah, it's great. I love being able to do the shows where we're talking about the news and the weekly rankings and all that. But if you're somebody that wants to be able to take your draft to the next level, you absolutely want to be involved in the CFBDynasty.com site as a subscriber, and you also want to be involved in the Discord. You want to get as much information as you can to make sure that you are not just crafting your draft the way you need it, but so you can take that next step and be that much better than the guys in your league. Because if you want to be in something like the CFB Dynasty Home League, and you ever want to have a chance to beat guys like Brian McElfresh or the double-headed Mike Dees, Mike Davis, Mike Dillingham, you better be on your dang game. You better be on your game. And if you go in there and you're just like, I'm going to wing it, you're going to be at the bottom of the list. You might go in there completely prepared and still be at the bottom of the list.
Uncle Joe is the best. In general, he's the best. But he's the one that didn't pay attention at all. Came into the draft just looking at like the Phil Steele rankings where he's got just the pro potential. So he would like have to draft 75 to 85% of his squad new every year because he was just drafting juniors and seniors and didn't really pay attention much until he started buying the CFB rankings. And he's really competitive now. He's going to have some great NFL drafts coming up where he's got some good players graduating. So he's a good one. And I did talk about getting him on. We're going to try and make that happen before the season.
I tell you what, if we get Joe onto one of these shows, we have to make sure we put a disclaimer up there that the views of Uncle Joe may not be the views of everybody associated with CFB Dynasty. I tell you, you know, for going through names, I know you guys out there listening, like, who are these people? But everybody has got a guy like Gordy Miller in their league. Gordy Miller was one of the impetuses for this league even existing. But Gordy is as old school as they come. Gordy, if he had the ability to come in with a stone tablet and a rock to chisel the names on there, he would do so. Gordy is the only guy that I know of in these kind of drafts that comes in with a pad of paper and a magazine no computer, no tablet, no anything. It is completely prepared. Instead of having it on a tablet and having all his notes there, he's going to take that stuff and write it down. And Gordy is always at the top. I couldn't do that, but that's what works for him. And he is the king of old school. But you've got a guy in your league like that. You can still use the CFB Dynasty info. It just takes a little bit more prep. But you can be a pad and paper or a hammer and chisel kind of guy and still be able to use it.
Yeah, no doubt. He is a special character in the league, for sure. When we're during the draft, it's me and you deciding, all right, do you want to put in his pick or do you want me to? Because everyone else is able to click their own player's name.
And one more thing, we've talked about this before with Gordy. There's no excuse to not be involved in your draft. Gordy at one point had a heart attack and was in the hospital. And if I remember correctly, called his wife and said, bring me my draft stuff. So he was in the hospital bed with his stone chisel, with his pad of paper. So it worked out for him, being able to do a successful draft. So it doesn't matter if your car breaks down. It doesn't matter what. You can find a way to be a part of that draft, to be involved in the league you're in.
Yeah, giving him a little credit. He did have the iPad that day. So he was able to make his picks. And, of course, took a Big Ten running back here in the first round as normal. So,
all right. So we've talked about the way that you can get into the rankings. You can take a look at the site. We've also touched on this a little bit. We're just going to go back and make sure we really hit on it right now. What can someone expect throughout the season as far as frequency of updates, the types of shows you're going to get on the channels, the types of articles? What is it that they can expect from CFB Dynasty in the regular season?
Regular season, so you and I will do the show. Typically, if Doug can join, he'll join in. But this will be like your prep show where we're going over the initial rankings before the Thursday night game. So we'll do the show, produce it by Wednesday. Everything you need going into your draft. And then Saturday morning, Doug and I will do a show, and you'll join in whenever you can on DraftKings, FanDuel, DFS type stuff. And we'll do a bet at the end and have a lineup or 2 or 3 that we'll go over that we're setting for that week. Content, we'll typically produce some for the sporting news. And then obviously on our site, you'll have the full rankings update, rankings specific to the week based on, player data. How are they doing? How are they trending? And their opponent difficulty coming up with projected outcomes and all that kind of stuff.
And if you go back to the Discord, we talked about how the Discord can help to influence the show. If you put questions up there in the Discord, they're probably going to get read and they're probably going to get discussed, debated, answered on the show, the weekly midweek show. And then when you guys were doing the Saturday show, there was a lot of live real-time interaction with the Discord during the show as well. So if you want to be involved and want to be a part, that's a way to be involved. You might hear your name shouted out. There's been a couple of guys, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was a couple of guys last year that consistently asked good questions. So they were getting mentioned by name on this show about every week during the season. So that's a way to get yourself involved as well.
Makes me want to do the live shows again, because when we were doing that, we got a lot of comments during the show. That was fun. But I know the off season's different for a lot of people, not for us. It's college football all year long. We do a 2-week break basically after the season concludes. And then we start planning for the new year. And last year for me, it happened during the season. I started working on 2024 stuff.
Yeah, we'll see how the schedule kind of plays out this year with everybody, with life changes and things like that. Will the show come out Thursday? Will it come out Wednesday? Will it come out Thursdays before the Thursday games?
Yep.
I know last year we were trying to make sure we got to DFS on the Thursday show, so somebody could get their the initial DFS lineups. But we'll talk about it. We want to know from you guys, what are the kind of things you want to see us? We used to do a segment called the milk carton, where players that just went that disappeared. We had them high in the rankings and they disappeared. We know who's the guy on the milk carton. Are there things we've done? We're always going to have the brisket lock. BMAC is always going to have his brisket lock. Who's the one guy that's not at the top of the rankings that you would go put a bet on, that you would say is going to be, and I say bet in general in that sense, to actually overperform, and you'd put him into your lineup if you had him. We want to have fun with you guys. We want you guys to help us to have the most fun, but also provide the most information we can for you from CFB Dynasty.
Fun is the word, right? Like, college football is for fun. There was a time where I gambled too much to where I had too many fantasy leagues, plus bets that I needed to have happen, plus the Gators game, and it just made the day too stressful. It should be fun. This show, everything we do should be fun, and just want to enjoy it with a core group of guys in our league, and the Discord and all you guys. Look forward to running a league with you guys again this year, open league, plus a Masters League this year added, and have some fun. Talk the video game from time to time, but mostly it's around college football, college fantasy football, player-centric show. That's what it's all about. Let's have fun and hopefully win some leagues or win some money along the way.
That's right. We hope that we can be a part of helping you to do that. And if you using CFB Dynasty helps out, let us know. We want to be able to tell people, hey, man, Joe Smith from over here won his league, and he used that CFB Dynasty weekly information, or he used the pre-draft prep to be able to help to take his team to the next level. So BMAC, what can we be looking forward to between now and the start of the draft season? What are the things you want to do when it comes to the shows? What are you looking to do?
Next week, it's a mock draft. So after all the rankings are up to date, we'll do a couple different mock drafts for different player pools, so we can see that. Probably do like our own Devi or C2C style draft, and then we'll do a CFF style draft. And all you guys can participate in that. If we do a live one, though, it's going to be a little different. So that's going to be the big next steps. And then soon we'll be on player news and adjustments. And before we know it, it'll be our prediction show right before the season starts. And that'll be it. There's plenty of more in between, but we'll keep it going, college fantasy centric, getting everybody prepped for their draft.
All right. With that being said, this is the end of the launch show for the getting ready for draft prep, getting ready for this season for CFB Dynasty for 2024. We hope you guys have enjoyed our show. We want to hear from you, though. We want you to comment on Discord. We want you to comment in the comments right here on YouTube. If you're listening on one of the other podcast sites, comment there. We want to hear from you guys what you think. Is there something that you really have enjoyed on the site? Is there an improvement you want to see on the site? Let us know so that we can consider it, that we can talk to people about it as well. So BMAC, anything else you want to say before we head out of here for the day?
That's all for now, Matt. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
All right. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, guys. On behalf of Brian McElfresh, my name is Matt Knowles. Please make sure you go out and like and subscribe on all of our social medias. And make sure you let everybody else know that you want to be a part of CFBDynasty.com, where we help you take your game to the next level.
Thank you for listening to the CFB Dynasty podcast. Help us out by subscribing on YouTube and reviewing us on your podcast network.